Have you ever looked in the mirror and thought, am I really living the life I was meant to? Welcome to Female Fluence, where we stop waiting for permission and start remembering our power. I am Pearl Mashour, a mom, educator, and a women's empowerment coach. And this is a space for honest conversations about growth, purpose, and becoming who you truly are. Here, we wake up to ourselves. We release the guilt, reclaim our confidence, and rise with grace, truth, and a little bit of fire. If something in you is whispering, there's more, take the self-reflection quiz at femalefluence.com and see where you are in your journey. Because you're not here to play small, you're here to rise fully. Today, we're talking about something that affects so many workplaces right now, burnout. Because when people are burnt out, performance drops, trust breaks down, and work just feels too heavy instead of meaningful. My guest today is a leadership expert on a mission to reduce suffering at work by helping leaders shift out of micromanagement, lead with more authenticity, and build real connections with their teams. In this episode, we will talk about how to delegate with confidence, break free from the do it all yourself trap, which we love to do, and that really leads us to burnout, and become the kind of leader who earns respect, not just by being that scariest boss that enters the room, but by creating a culture where people feel supported, empowered, and trusted. So let's dive in. Selena Rezvani is a recognized author, speaker, and leadership consultant. Her newest book series was born out of a viral newsletter she actually started in 2020 to help people build their confidence and influence through small actions. She writes today for NBC's Know Your Value. In addition, she wrote an award-winning column on women and leadership for the Washington Post. In 2018, she gave a TEDx talk entitled Interrupting Gender Bias Through Meeting Culture, which was recognized for the Journalism Award. She's the author of 4 books, with her latest that I have right here. Called Quick Confidence. So, Selena, welcome to Female Fluence. I'm so excited to have you here and just to dive in everything.
Wonderful. I'm so happy to be here, Pearl. Thank you for having me. And I'm a fangirl of your work. So
Thank you. That's I'm honored to hear that. Thank you so much. So tell us a little bit about how did you become the woman that you are today? And as a little girl, is this what you envisioned yourself, or what were your goals back then?
let me think. How did I become the woman I am today? I can tell you this, it was not in a straight, predictable line. I think a lot of how I've come to be has been through a zigzagging career. And I think at the heart of that was really believing in myself, a story of trusting myself. Because when you zig and zag in a career and take some turns, sometimes it's easier to stay put, do what's familiar. And so, an example of that is I went to university for social work and I loved that. I got a bachelor's and master's in it at a combined program. The problem was, Pearl, I could not stomach that work. As much as I loved the helping profession, problem solving with clients, trying to empower them, I could not leave this at the office. It was consuming me on the weekends. I lost weight. And I finally said to myself, this is not sustainable. I want to use these skills, but I'd like to apply them in a different way. And so I got very lucky and found a role using those kind of skills with talent. So, with companies' employees, surveying them, helping elevate their voice about their issues and what they like about the workplace, too. And I loved it, and that was a big, painful, shame filled inflection point because I had racked up student debt. This was not an enjoyable decision. And yet I look back and I'm so glad I made it. So, just for anyone listening, it's okay if you've opened wrong doors. It is so okay. I look back and today I'm so grateful for this twisty path, for the multiple skills. I went on to get master's in business, but the combination is my favorite place to be. And I use both sets of skills. So I think for your second question, did I imagine it? I think as a little girl, I imagined and dreamed about the contours, the rough like silhouette of my career today, maybe writing a book, having like a portfolio career where I don't do the same thing every day. I can speak, I can write,
Right.
I can have this wonderful time with you. And so I think I had a sense of that, but not at all how it would come together.
I think for the listeners that are listening to this is so inspiring because we all go through that zigzag, and it's really terrifying if we decide and even admit that we went through the wrong path, we opened the wrong door. And a lot of us just say, oh, we're just going to stick it through because, there is all that financial debt. And then we're scared. That fear just keeps us stuck. So it's really good to hear this, that it's like, it's okay, and just admit it and then move on. Somehow the paths that you're supposed, it's going to lead you to the right door if you listen, if you allow it to. And I think that's a good takeaway.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of comfort in looking at it as none of it's wasted.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a waste. I guarantee you are going to use something from that time,
Of
uh,
course. Of
no
course.
matter what your zigzag has looked like.
Yeah. I love that. So now I love your mission. I think we definitely need this, that you are on a mission to end suffering at work. I think that's so important because there's just people can't continue to work the same way. And then I know a lot of times, for us, especially as women, it's like we do the work at work and then we have another whole shift at home. And then we want to continue just saying we're going to do it all, we're doing it all. And that's when all of a sudden we collapse, we have burnouts, we have health issues, because again, we want to do it all and we don't want to delegate, we don't want to ask for help. So if you can tell me what this means to you and why did you decide to make this your mission?
Yeah, I love how you just recapped what women face. And I would add a layer that I'm in the middle of, which is for women of a certain age,
Oh,
perimenopause
I'm right
and
there with you.
menopause. Yeah, add to that.
Yep.
So not only are you juggling a lot, emotional labor, mental labor, actual labor, you're also sometimes doing it with less reserves, with less of like an energy bank account
Yeah.
because you're
Or
trying to
you're
get your hormones.
emotional. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And so that it's its own job, and you know all about it too. And so I have a lot of empathy for this situation. And the last thing we should do is make it no win for women at work. That there's no understanding or acknowledgement. So when I talk about suffering, Jeffrey Pfeffer, a Stanford professor, wrote an incredible book called Dying for a Paycheck. And it was about this idea of suffering and how much data there is to back up people's unhappiness at work, their intense stress and sense of burnout. I grew up the daughter of a workaholic. My dad gave a lot to his job. He was an apparel executive and always had this faraway look in his eyes on weeknights and weekends, like distracted,
Distracted. And kids
thinking
can
about,
tell. They pick up on that.
oh,
Oh,
completely.
completely.
I could tell when he was stressed just by how he kind of shook his leg and seemed agitated. And it always had to do with work. He suffered heart disease and at one point checked himself out of the hospital against medical
Oh
orders
my
to
gosh.
give a presentation, Pearl. Really. So my dad, sadly, we lost him at a young age. He
Oh,
passed
I'm
away at 80.
sorry.
So it's personal too. It's not just statistics and great books people have written. It's really personal. Work can take a lot from you if you let it. And so my goal, because I'm such a big fan of teaching self-advocacy, is to help managers model sustainable careers and help individuals, speak up, advocate for their needs and their boundaries.
I think it's so amazing that you made that your mission because you just witnessed it firsthand and it stayed with you as a child. And I'm sure your dad is so proud watching and seeing what you're doing and, changing the system. So I love that. Now, what does it mean for a woman to lead without ego and still command the room? Because that's always hard, right? Because we feel like we have to put this like armor and just be very scary, not maybe not so nice to really like get that respect and for people. But how do we do that when we can just take that armor off and actually still command the room?
Yeah, what a relief, right? Just to picture taking heavy, stiff armor off, and being you, that's enough in this situation. And I really believe that. I think ego-free leaders, they're not, consumed with proving their worth,
Hmm.
or their ability, their competence. They're really good at amplifying the strengths in the room. And so I think one of the ways we can do that as leaders is this word yield, to make space for other people to yield. Maybe that means deferring to somebody else's expertise. Pearl, you know this area best. I'm going to leave the answering of this question to you. Or asking the group, I could give a monologue here, but I want to know what you think.
Right.
What's a concern you have and what's a opportunity you see with this path? So I think there's a lot of focus on involving, consulting your team. So they very much feel invested in decisions and directions.
Yeah, I think that's great because if one person's always leading and talking and not allowing for anyone else to give their opinion, then they just don't feel part of the team, right? And that's where the ego comes in because you just want to continue just listening to yourself and proving that you just know it all and doing that. So I think that's really, really good. Why does micromanagement create such a burnout and how can we delegate with confidence instead of falling into that do it all myself trap that we
Mhm.
certainly, I think, especially as a woman do?
Yes. Yes. I experienced that personally and had to take a step back and reflect when, I asked my husband once to make our kids' lunches while I was traveling and found myself like micromanaging what he chose. And it was like, Selena, do
Just
you need a
let
timeout?
him make that whatever he
Yes,
wants.
that's right. Like nothing too terrible is going to happen here. Let go. And what I would say is this mental reframe changed a lot for me. And I did that thing I think a lot of us do. Oh, it'll just be faster if I do it myself.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
What a lie. What a lie, right? And the truth is, even if that other person can do 65, 70% of what you might have done,
Hmm.
that is a win. That is a win. And I think the old me, the perfectionist me, looked at it as if it's not this perfect side by side comparison, it's a loss. And that's just not true.
Yeah.
Having someone take that off your plate, if you are perfectionistic, chances are the things you're worried about don't matter so much in the grand scheme if they're able to get it over the finish line. So I think that's one mindset shift that, their imperfect action or different action, it might not be imperfect, it might just be different than you, is a win in the end. The other thing that I think helps is just remembering micromanagement really sends one message: I don't trust you.
Yeah.
So, one of the things that opened my eyes, and I share it with the people I coach, is delegate on levels. Don't kind of expect people to read your mind. I thought you were going to be proactive when I gave you this and spearhead the research and write the report and do all the things. If you were cryptic and didn't explain that, how should they know? Or maybe you thought the opposite. Maybe you thought, I want to be consulted along the way many
Mhm.
times and moments, but you didn't say that. So I recommend people delegate on levels and they can decide what those are, for themselves. But level one might be do exactly this. Please write a report using the template on the drive. A second level might be I'd like you to do the research on some vendors and come back to me with your best recommendation. Together we're going to manage the
Right.
steps after. It's shared ownership, right? And so you get to decide what these levels are. Maybe the highest level is I'm handing it fully over to you. You make the call. I trust you, and I would just like an update at the end. Err on the side of challenging yourself, managers, to give them autonomy. And one way you can do that is tell them the what that you want, but let them decide some of the how. So they have a clear picture of the outcome you want, but you're
Exactly.
giving them some say so in the way it's done.
That's, I mean, these are great, like to give them that chance to do some of that research and the problem solving on their own without breaking everything down. But at the same time, being really real about what exactly you want. So that when they bring out the wrong outcome, and then, then you're upset and saying, wait, I wanted this and you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And it causes all these problems. It's just that serious open communication, no mind games, no crypto, like it's just being real about it, right?
Yes.
I think that's really important. And sometimes we don't do that. I mean, in anything, even as that, again, we can reference that back to even at home. It's like we expect everyone just to be mind readers and do what we want them to do, and then we get all worked up that this wasn't done correctly. So just being very straightforward. That's great advice, Selena. I love it.
I think one other bonus, if you don't mind, really
Of
quickly,
course.
is just that, last time I checked, all of us would like a lighter load, not a heavier load. And when we don't delegate, what do? We teach everyone always come to me. Like you can't do it yourself.
Yeah.
Come to me for the final answer or approval. And when you do the opposite, when you delegate, you're creating that independence on your team, so that they can solve problems when you're not around. It's not this totally dependent on you
Yeah.
dynamic. So there's a long-term win too.
There is. And then they start trusting themselves and having more confidence. So then in return, their confidence grows. They're going to be able to take on more projects. It's easier on you as well.
Yes, and they'll never forget it. To
Yeah.
you, it might be a small gesture giving them X project. To them, it can feel like a huge show of
Yeah.
trust and confidence.
It's very true. Very true. What makes quiet leadership so powerful? Because I keep hearing that too. Like sometimes it's like, you're in that boardroom and it's like there's someone who's not really talking, but really listening, taking notes. And then there's someone who's just trying to take over and speaking the most. What makes that quiet leadership more powerful?
Yeah, we all probably know somebody like this or several somebodies. And one of the things quiet leaders do better than most is they listen. They listen more and they listen more deeply. So, we all know how it feels, how great it feels when someone listens
Hmm.
generously. Like they have nowhere else to be, they're not tapping their toe, they're not multitasking. And that is so powerful. There's a byproduct that comes out of that, and that is you are not rushing in as much as a vocal leader to coach, to frame, to edit, to add on to what that person's saying. And it's a very small signal, like a very subtle one, but by you pausing more, by you creating space for them to elaborate, you can be building their confidence, and their own leadership just because of the way they can sound off with you and speak with you. There's not a sense that, oh, I'm going to start talking and you'll interrupt me as soon
Hmm.
as I get started and tell me how it should be. So there's something pretty profound, and I think in the way quiet leaders communicate. They're creating spaces for other people.
Definitely creating that space because when someone is talking all the time, they're not really going to listen to you. And when you don't feel anyone's listening, you don't feel seen. And then you just feel like whatever you have to say is just not worth it, right? and that keeps
Yeah.
happening instead of like having someone have that like reflective listening and really sitting there and just taking it in and say, okay, like I'm here. I get what where you're going, what direction you want to lead us, and then going from there.
Yes, and I think there's like a BFF, the BFF to that quiet, creating that space is asking questions, genuinely curious questions. So again, you're not the manager saying, here's how it should be, speaking in conclusions, but you might ask them a question. I have a tip I share in my book, Quick Leadership, called Ask Three Before You Answer. So, in that same quiet leadership approach, they bring you a problem. This client's unhappy. What should I do? You could swoop in with a solution, or you could ask those questions. Questions like, well, what have you tried so far? What solution are you leaning towards? What do you think would best serve the client here? And it doesn't mean you can't give input, but you are teaching them to think critically in these situations. And it's huge. I think quiet leaders are more likely to do that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's funny because you took me right into the next question. My next question was, can you give us some quick leadership tips for our listeners?
Yeah, I think one, because I focus so much on meetings, is about that. And that is if your people are quiet in meetings, they're not speaking up. It's like pulling teeth. They are not managing the work. They're busy managing you, you know, what you will do, how you will react if they dissent or they
Hmm,
disagree
hmm.
or they raise a concern. So that's an important one to remember as a quick tip. If they're quiet, it's probably not that the work is a puzzle. It's probably that they're not feeling so safe and free to speak up.
Hmm.
I think another one is your calendar, your boundaries, your stated boundaries teach other people what you value. Okay, so your calendar, what you accept, what you reinforce, what you say yes to, teaches other people what you value. If you accept 6:30 p.m. calls, say yes to the weekend travel, never set limits, people take a cue from that and they assume you are open 24/7.
Right.
You might even enjoy this. I have an all access pass to you. So realize there is so much strength in you setting boundaries, you blocking deep work time, where you're uninterrupted if that's what serves you, you know, pushing back when people say, will you be checking in on your vacation? No, I will not, but I'll be back on Monday, the
Hmm.
21st. So I think that's another one. And yeah, I think the one other thing, given our topic about burnout, is this is usually not a resilience problem. Like, why can't you bounce back faster? It's a systemic problem, usually around out of touch expectations with workloads, and I think that's an important thing. You can lavish people with all the workshops you want and aromatherapy, but if you're not looking at the issues, right?
Yep.
The norms within your work culture, it's pretty hard to fix things more broadly.
Yeah, the work culture is important. I wish I love the way you speak, and I can only imagine that your work culture is really nice and trusting and calm. And I just wish, like when I think back to like my old jobs, it's like if we had someone like you come and like kind of take over and shift that whole environment, it makes such a difference, because it's like you immediately feel like, okay, like I am respected, I am wanted, I am needed, what I have to say is important and I'm seen. And so because of that, I'm going to give 120% to my
Mhm.
work because I want to make you happy. I want to make myself happy and I want to make the entire work environment happy because we're a team. So that just mindset just shifts versus, oh, like I have to go to work. This is such a pain. Like I can't wait. I have like 4 more hours to go and you're just dragging and wasting time and sneaking, your phone to go online. And, it's such a different environment because if that culture is different. So I love what you're doing. And I think if this becomes like the new norm, things can really change, especially in the
Yes,
corporate world.
here's to that.
Yeah.
We need it. It's senseless for so many people to suffer.
Yeah. Because you're
Work.
spending, if you think about it, Selena, you're spending majority of your time at work. So if you're miserable at work and then your coworker is miserable and your boss is miserable, you're just like, you're spending like 80% of your life in a miserable environment with a bunch of miserable people. So if we shift all of that around, it's a win-win for everybody.
Oh, completely. And one of the things that comforts me and gets me up every day to do this or give workshops or go into companies is these workplaces are human made. These norms are human made, and they didn't land on us from outer space and we're stuck with them.
Yeah.
We have a hand in
To change
shaping
them.
them.
Yeah.
There's that beautiful concept, know better, do better. Well, we
Exactly.
know now more than ever, statistically, scientifically, what benefits employees, what doesn't. So it's time to practice it.
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, what do you think? Because I know there's also that trust issue, right? A lot of people don't trust like management and they're like skeptical. What are the biggest trust killers that you would say, and how can leaders rebuild that trust with their team?
Yeah, I think one of them is kind of hoarding and secrecy. I think that's a quick trust killer. It
Hmm.
can make employee, even a very good, reliable one, feel like I'm being relegated to the kids' table. Like the grown-ups are going to go talk about the
Oh,
real
yeah.
business. I'm not allowed in. That's not how you want to make your adult employees feel, right? You want to make them feel like a grown person who's trustworthy. So I'm a big believer in challenging yourself to be more transparent where it's appropriate, right? I'm not talking about like sensitive personnel problems or something, but where you can give them the why behind a certain direction you're taking, give them a little bit of the backstory of what upper management has decided that's led to this. It means a lot to people to be let in and see behind the curtain. I
Yeah.
think the other thing is inconsistency. And I have a coachee right now I'm working with on this because in his 360 review, his employees said, you don't follow through. Like you are a nice person and you're smart, but you don't follow through on your promises or show up to meetings you say you will. And man, that's a big issue for your employees. They need to be able to trust you.
Of
That is how
course.
we form trust,
That
is these little,
consistency, right?
that's right, and these little human impressions and interactions over time. And if those are spotty and hard to predict, I don't know if she'll show up or not. You can imagine what that does to an employee feeling like you've got my back. So, a very simple solution there, shrink the number of promises you make if you have to. But there's a beautiful saying in the book, The Four Agreements, be impeccable with your
Oh,
word.
by the way, that's one of my favorite books. Yeah.
Yeah, and I especially love that. I have to remind myself
All the
of it.
time.
Like, yeah, can you really follow through on this, Selena? It means so much to your employees. So again, if you have to train yourself a little, catch yourself saying, "Oh, sure, I'll get to that. Oh, sure, I'll send you that. Oh, yeah, let's meet about that this week or sometime this month." Do not say it. Think about some replacement statements that aren't a promise.
Yeah.
But it's time to change that because it's a habit that hurts us.
It does. It definitely, definitely. Now, in your book, I remember reading about fish slapping meetings, and I thought that was something fun to kind of address. So, can you explain what that is and why are these so important?
Yes. So I first learned about them when I joined Deloitte. We had them in our kind of innovation hub where I worked. And I remember getting it on my calendar, an invitation to a fish slapping in Chicago. And I thought, like, what did I
I'm
get
getting like a
myself in?
visual.
Yeah. And I said, what is this? And employees said it is a chance to meet, to air concerns, to ask unanswered questions, to basically deal with issues before they become a big stink and unmanageable, and to be that open culture real time. And it's incredibly simple. There's not a lot of bells and whistles to this, but the idea is that you get your team in the habit of open speak,
Hmm.
talking about it, naming it. And it's not that you come out with a list of promises you're making as a manager. I'm going to resolve everything you brought up today. No, but you have a chance to hear patterns. Are there patterns in what people are saying? And it's a great way to get in front of problems and a great way to build trust in a culture so it doesn't feel like I'm constantly being told what to do
Right.
and I never get input.
What a great idea. I think, this would be a great thing to implement, even like for couples or families, right? If there's like if you think about it, it's like, oh, like once a month, like whatever. And then that way there's not this whole thing that's building up. And it's just like, like imagine your kids, like your teenage kids sitting around saying, well, this is my concern. It's not a fight. It's not yelling. But like when this happened, it kind of, I felt like you didn't trust me and I would like more responsibility. And imagine how that would go about. Like, I think it's a
That's
great,
such a good, yeah, that is such a good, I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's such a good idea and a connection I never made, but you're so right. Often there's things right under the surface in a family
and there's
that,
never time. Or there's never time.
yes,
Everyone's like hustling and going from one thing to another, but to have that kind of safe space, it's like a family meeting where everyone can kind of speak up and just, fix everything. Then it doesn't lead to these big explosive fights and tension.
I love it. I'll be your first retreat member if you run that.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. So now, speaking of kids and everything, because we know these younger generations, right? We have the Generation Z, the Millennials, like it's things are changing, and they're used to a different way than that traditional leadership model that we've talked about in the past. So I mean, a lot of the things actually, like everything that you've written in your book that you're talked about, is a new way that managers should adapt. Can you explain a little bit why you think, about these generations, how different they are, and why is it that managers should adapt? And this is like the future because they're rolling in, and if these managers don't adapt, we're not going to have any employees, right?
Right. Yeah, that's such a
They're
good
all going to
point.
be influencers and they're just going to work at home online. So,
Yes, and that really is true because a majority of Gen Z don't want to be managers. So if everyone's thinking entrepreneurially, how do we bridge the gap for those of us in the same workplace? And one of the things I think it's important for managers today to understand is just how participative the world is that Gen Z grew up in. Highly participative. I'm gaming with a group. I have group school projects. I can give input on the products I love and enjoy. There is so much of that. I can get instant feedback through social media about things. That to suddenly join a workplace where, emails sound like these directives or meetings can sometimes be a one-way monologue.
mhm.
Maybe someone says, I want your best innovative ideas, but they shoot down every idea. That is a hard thing to bridge, I think,
Yeah.
for a Gen Z person. And this is where I think older generations who manage do have to, nudge themselves a little
Yes.
bit closer and really think about that participation quotient, and a word I use a lot is co-creation for this. Think co-create rather than me informing them
Hmm.
about how we could do it. Could I involve them in some way? Could I ask for their input on this change we're getting ready to make? Could I give them a slice of the work of maybe something they don't typically get exposure to? Even if it's observation, I'm going to invite them to come to the client presentation and watch. That's a way of co-creating and being involved together. Let them gather research on something. I love doing this with Gen Zs. That's part of a bigger project because
Yeah.
what's nice about that is they become the de facto expert on that data, whether it's a survey or outside research. So there's so many ways we can do this and just make life every day at work feel more two-way, more truly collaborative. And I think it takes a little checking ourselves,
Yeah.
because many of us came up in the command and
Yes,
controls.
we're not used to that at
Yeah.
all. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love the co-create and that collaboration. I think that's a really good way to start making those shifts. So,
Yeah.
so we're going to shift gears a little bit and talk about confidence because I mean, confidence is really important whether you're in management, whether you're an employee. How do we what advice do you have as far as like navigating that self-doubt? I mean, I know from everything you've done, right? I mean, like a TEDx talk. I mean, those things you have to really build that confidence to get up there and every time you're speaking or holding a workshop and kind of step out of your comfort zone. So, what advice do you have for our listeners about this?
So many things. How long do you have? But I'll try to
Go
give
for
you
it. Go
some
for
of
it.
my favorite gems. I think one is watch the comparisonitis. Watch this urge to overestimate what everyone else can do and underestimate what you can do. Well,
Mm,
she's ready for the job, the big VP job, or he has the right experience. He's got the training and the education. Stop doing it.
yeah.
You are taking yourself out of the running of things before you even have a chance. You're telling yourself no before they can. And that's something I would have told my younger self. Stop underestimating what you can do and, amplifying them to be all knowing or
Right.
perfect. They're not. They're
They're
not.
not.
And so I think that's one part of it. I think another part, if you are maybe an overthinker, and that can get in the way of confidence, right? Because we ruminate, we might second guess. I really want to apply for the job, but I don't know. What
Yeah.
if I get rejected? What if I stink at the interview, right?
Yep. Yep.
And one kind of silly little tip, but it works. It's a body tip. And it's when you want to do something confident or courageous, enlist your body. Like give your body the directions. So instead of, oh boy, I have to go and submit this application, you are literally saying, fingers, hit enter so that we can hit the submit button. Or maybe you're at a networking event and you're feeling a little intimidated. You're like, legs, walk over to that duo over there and extend your hand and say your name. It's a little thing, but it is a way to recruit your body
Yes.
to help you because your brain, your mind will catch up, but you're having those initial steps start with your body and it's really cool, but it can work. Break you out of that overthinking kind of
Instead of
spiral.
like just freezing, right? That's I think one of the reasons like
Yeah,
people just freeze because but like giving those kind of commands like okay, walk. Keep
that's right.
walking. Have your head up straight, you know.
That's right. Totally. There's all kinds of ways you can use it and it's just one more tool in your toolbox. But I think just overall with confidence, think about the stories you tell
Tell
yourself.
yourself.
Are you telling yourself the right
Yeah.
stories? Are they conducive to confidence or are they more biting and critical? It's really hard to build confidence if you don't look at that and address it.
Is there a certain way do you think that we can cultivate the confidence in our children, especially girls? Because, you know, we really need to start early, right?
So early.
So
Yes.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, I have boy girl twins who are 13, and this is so close to my heart. I think one of the things I want to encourage us to do with girls is to praise effort, not just the grade or the outcome, but like stretching yourself, venturing something. To me, those are so praiseworthy, and girls don't always hear, "Ooh, I love how you took a chance,"
Hmm.
or "I love how you followed your curiosity on that and learned more and researched it," but not praising perfection, which is so dangerous. So really making a point to praise progress,
Yes.
praise stretch and effort and chances they've taken, not perfection. you know I think the other thing is teaching them they don't have to earn belonging. They are okay in the world as they are. They don't need that outside approval to take up space. I think that's so important that we
Yeah.
teach girls and women in some cases, right, who need a refresher, myself
Yes.
included at times, that no, you don't have to play it down. No, you don't have to diminish yourself. No, you don't have to find a super sweet, nice way to say it. Sometimes it's okay to just say
Yeah.
it. And that's one of the things I'm working with now with my daughter. And it's funny, Pearl, because I think I'm benefiting every time I tell her too. Like, I need to rehear it.
Yeah, I hear you. I have three kids. My oldest daughter is 20, and then my other daughter's 18, and my son's 14. But it's really, really important because it doesn't matter what age they are, they still, like we all do. We have those moments where we start doubting ourselves, and then we need that conversation, that reminder. And because there's a lot of that in society, right? That it's like, oh, we need to be more quiet and we need to, that's more ladylike if you behave this way, and just take that bulliness or take someone, telling you that you're doing something and just trying to quiet you because they want to push you out of the way and move up, and just trying to lead and guide them, but in the right professional adult way to be able to handle and speak for themselves, whether it's friendships, school, work, because it gets, once they go out into the real world, it's even scarier, you know?
I think you're right. And a light bulb that went off for me with my kids when they were littler was just how quick people are to criticize women public figures, even women themselves
Yeah.
criticizing
I
other
think
women.
I think actually the funny thing is I always say that women are worse to women, right? It's like they are more judgmental, they're more critical, which we need to change this story. We need to bring each other up, right?
I agree. And I think part of it is even just a little thing we can all do is even checking yourself around your kids when there's a public figure on TV, country president or a famous face or a newscaster, noticing in yourself how quick you may be to kind of criticize, I don't
Right.
know, someone's outfit, someone's
Yes,
presentation,
yes,
somebody's something else. Women are more likely to be criticized for those things. So it's something I say to my husband too, like the kids are listening
yes.
when we talk about that female presidential candidate or that public figure and tear her down. Like, let's really think about
Yeah.
that and think about what we say or praise
Yes.
her effort out loud.
Again, we go back to being impeccable with your words, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
and that kids really listen and they soak it in and they take it. So we have to be very careful how we model that. So you talk about there was I think it was maybe in one of your TikToks. Actually, first of all, let's address that. Your TikToks are so engaging. I love them. Like
Thank
just
you.
it's just like you just touch on like little things that are really important, but you do it in a really fun way. So I know you were talking about the like your light season, the time in your life that maybe you weren't working, there's gaps in your resume either because of just what life brought to you or because you were in the stages of motherhood and toddlers. And so how can we help that women when they go out and they want to apply for a job, and then there's all these gaps in the resume and they've taken some time off, and it's terrifying, it's scary, like you go out there and you're like, "Oh, what am I going to say? Should I make up a story?" So how can you go about and speak confidently about that was a stage in my life, it was that season, but now I'm here, I'm ready, I'm excited. So please guide us with that.
Yeah, and there's some data that shows women feel a little bit less confident when they come back from a leave. I know I did in my case with my babies. And so this can be especially tricky to do when you're feeling less confident
Yeah.
and yet you have to sell yourself and present yourself sometimes as though you are. So I think the first thing is respecting your gap yourself, because just like so many things in life, the way you talk about it, if you're apologetic, if you're
Hmm.
uncomfortable, if you are blushing, like it's some liability and bad thing, people take a cue from that. On the other hand, if you are self assured in that gap, if you focus on, taking your collective experiences and moving into the future, a role with this company, that's a very different approach. And somebody who can come across as richer for all of their experiences and capable. So that's the first thing, is respect your own experience. It's going to come through.
Right.
You do not need to fixate on it or go into detail into it if you want. If there's anywhere you're going to shine a spotlight, I would shine it on the future and the value that you want to add in this role, how it matches you, how there's a great skill or talent overlap there. And that's where you want to spend your time. Like you mentioned, your caregiving time or your time out of work is one little layer of who you are, one chapter in your full book of what you bring. So I'd say resist the urge to over focus or feel the need to over explain it.
Over explain. Right. I think that's what
Yeah,
we
I
do
think
mostly, right? We want to justify it. Yeah.
exactly. And I think we can frame it as this was a conscious choice. I did it, I followed through, and now I'm ready to. And yeah, hopefully we can normalize more of those
Hmm.
conversations so that, more people can go with you on that and focus right on that next role and not fixate on the past.
Exactly. Exactly. I hope so too. Now, you have another topic that I wanted to bring up is that you mentioned how it's very true about us as women, how our we get judged, right? By a lot of different things, but especially by what we wear, right? It's either we're going to work and it's like, we're dressed too sexy or we're too sloppy, or, I mean, it just goes on and on. So it's like a no-win game. So from your perspective in the leadership world, how should women navigate this? Because whatever direction we go, it seems like it's not good enough or it's not the right direction.
Yeah, it is really frustrating in that way. Just in my own life, in the last 2 months, I have heard people talk about physicians, female physicians, and this just struck me. One said, I was kind of weirded out that my doctor came in scrubs, clean face, but with still wet hair. Okay, so being criticized for too casual an appearance, her ponytail was visibly a little bit wet. And then another person, another physician, criticized for wearing heels, for wearing stockings and a skirt with it because she was mistaken or taken for a sales rep and not seen as doctorly enough in the way she presented. And I think it struck me as such an example of this no
Mhm.
win. Well, what is she supposed to look like in a
Right.
perfect
Right.
world? What's the impeccable, untouchable, perfect, and that's not the question we should have to be asking. That's a crazy making question if
Yes.
we stay there. So I think the simple answer is dress to impress yourself. Dress in a way that makes you
Feel
feel
good.
authentic, gives you a sense of authority and energy, right? That's going to fuel you throughout the day. Oftentimes, when I public speak, I will almost always wear a bright color. Why? Not because I want to be seen from outer space, but it gives me a little reminder of boldness, maybe my own boldness, and reminds me to go big, something I want to do on that stage. So, what is that for you? What maybe calms you or makes you feel like the best version of yourself? Curate a couple versions of that type of outfit, whatever it is for you, that gives you that comfort in your skin. And I feel like a best version of myself, and wear that. That's what I call power outfits. Curate three of them and try to figure out what is the common element among
Hmm.
them. Maybe it's the bright color, maybe it's calm, maybe it's comfort, maybe it's feeling powerful.
I think that power outfits. I love that. And like you, I love bold or fun colors too. That just makes me feel good. But I think it's really important that we have to just stop listening to all of that nonsense and just make sure that we're dressing in a way that we feel good, because when we feel good, we will do good, right? It's all
Yes.
together. And that's how we gain our confidence, by actually,
Yeah.
feeling good
And
in our
feel
own
right.
skin, not by what other people are expecting us to look like. Because, and at the end of the day, no matter how, you're going to get judged anyway. So you might as well just mute all of those.
That's so
So,
true. That's one way to kind of surrender and please yourself in
yep.
this. And
That
I
that's the
think,
only that's the only way. I mean, I can talk to you forever, but I know, to be respectful of your time, this conversation has been such a reminder that leadership doesn't have to feel heavy. You've made it seem so easy and calm. We've talked about why so many leaders fall into that do it all myself trap, how micromanagement slowly creates burnout, and what it looks like to actually delegate with confidence without losing your standards or control. And we've also touched on something deeper, like leading without that ego, right? Taking off that heavy armor and building trust with your team by just being human. Because when your values align with your actions as a leader, people are not just going to respect you, they're actually going to remember you, and you will leave a legacy. So, Selena, before we end this show, is there a message or a piece of guidance that you would like to leave our listeners with today?
yes, someone did this for me once and it really changed my life for the better. As you are building your own kind of bold leadership, I hope you'll think about somebody in your life who you could nudge, maybe who looks up to you or who comes to you for advice, where you can kind of listen to their dream or their want and say, that's a nice dream. Now think bigger. And it is amazing what that act can do, that gift to someone, that I think even more of you. I see your potential and it's undeniable. Be that person for someone. Oftentimes they can't picture it or they haven't pictured it yet, and you are emboldening them to do something breakthrough.
That's such a powerful message. It's like paying it forward, filling their bucket. And it's like, and people need that. They just, some people just need that little, nudge for them to be like, wait, she actually believes in me, then maybe I need to start believing in myself. So that's a very beautiful and powerful message. Thank you. It's been so wonderful talking with you today. And all the links will be in my show notes. And you can also find Selena's amazing book. It's a quick read, it's fun, it's easy. In Amazon, you can go on her website. And thank you again for being on Female
Thank,
Fluence.
thank you so much.
Thank you for spending this time with me here on Female Fluence, where we rise, reflect, and remember who we are. If something from today's episode spoke to you, share it with another woman who's ready to rise too. And before you go, download your free empowerment coaching guide at femalefluence.com. It's your next step toward living with more clarity and confidence. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Mashour_femalefluence. And if you're ready for deeper support, sign up for a free discovery call. I would love to connect with you. Remember, my friends, don't just exist. Live your life fully, bravely, and in truth. I'm Mashour, and until next time, stay true, stay powerful, and stay you.